Hey there, you beautiful badass. Welcome to the Carrie Croft Show. I'm your host, Carrie Croft, delivering you stories that get you pumped up and feeling like the unstoppable savage that you are. So grab your coffee, put on your game face, and let's do this thing, baby. Ready to elevate your self-care game? Boss Gal Beauty Bar is a modern med spa offering everything from cosmetic injectables, lasers and microneedling, to medical-grade facials and skincare. Conveniently located in Clintonville, Grandview, Powell, and Easton, making self-care a priority has never been easier. Use code CROFT for $25 off your first visit.
Hey, Maria Milligan here with RE/MAX Premier Choice. I grew up right here in this town. I know the schools, the parks, even the best places for coffee on Sunday morning. When you work with me, you're not just getting a realtor. You're getting a neighbor who knows this town inside and out. Let's find you a place that feels like home sweet home. Text me at 614-314-1355.
Hello. It's me. Nina West.
Hello.
Be still my beating heart. Are you really here? Is this
I'm here.
Is this
Here
a
I
mirage?
I wish.
Let me get my yayas out. I am so excited to have you here.
I'm really excited to be here. Thank
I mean,
you
this
for
is
having me.
like, I wouldn't be more happy if I had like J-Lo or.
I wish.
No,
I
I'm
wish.
serious. Like, I am so
I'm
excited.
going through a big divorce right now, so no.
I mean, no. Where's the drama? Let's get right to the tea and the juice. How are you?
I'm really good.
Are you fucking freezing?
It's welcome to Ohio in January.
No cryo.
It's so cold. I mean, the whole East Coast. I mean, everything is so cold right now.
It is, but you know it's warm in our hearts, isn't it?
Oh, I'm keeping that holiday season. Carry over to the
we-
Carrie Croft Show.
Can't we keep it holiday season like 365?
Please, I'd be so happy.
So give me how are you right now, currently? Just how are you doing?
I'm good. I am keeping myself busy while it feels like the world is burning. And so I'm trying to focus.
Figuratively and literally?
Yeah, I'm trying to focus so that way my energy is protected and preserved for the work that I need to do in the upcoming period of life that is happening right now. So I'm trying to really focus on that. But that's difficult because, the world is so the world is worlding right now, and we are, and we're in the midst of trying to figure out, I think all of us, how we fit into this new kind of global landscape and the conversation that's happening in the world.
Speaking of that,
Yeah.
how did you handle this past election when the dust settles and this shit happens and you wake up like a week or two later and you're like, okay, this is where we're at?
I think because I'm a person who likes to keep myself busy, and because I really do, I think, therapize is not the right word, but because I do allow my work to kind of express what I'm feeling internally, or I somehow channel that, into my work. I don't think I really acknowledged it until, until we were going through some of the bigger pieces of this transition into a new administration. So, I had done a lot of campaigning and done a lot of events and throughout the season, but then I was producing a show, so I was just so busy. So I didn't have the opportunity to really allow that reality to sink into my, kind of my psyche and begin to process it. So I think that I was slow to accept the results of the 2024 election.
Yeah.
Of course I accept it, but, it doesn't mean that it's not going to be challenging for people like me. And of course, I also feel like because I am a cis male, I have a responsibility to really work, as a gay man, but I'm cis presenting, I have a really major responsibility to use any platform or ability that I have to speak to the needs of people who don't have this opportunity, so that we can make life better for people who are going to definitely be disenfranchised and attacked and used as scapegoats for bigger pieces in this larger puzzle.
Yeah. And not to, I feel like you're a person who sees the positive and pushes forward and
Yeah.
has been able to be extremely successful. But can we just take a minute for just feeling like, man, why is there always an uphill climb? But for someone like you who from, North Canton, Ohio, who grew up and you clearly probably knew at a young age, like something's a little bit different here. Don't you kind of feel like sometimes where it's like, God, there's always like some kind of adversity?
Well, I feel like the true, like the, I feel like my community, my LGBTQI plus community really has defined itself on these times, and like how we are able to come together and rise above and to provide access and a space for people who don't necessarily see themselves, who are going to come under attack in these periods of history, and as we know now, come under attack in just a few days of this new administration. I find that these challenging times are times with which we best define ourselves and how we are really able to rise to the occasion, to make sure that no one is left behind, to really try our best to give space and opportunity for people who might otherwise not find it at home or in school or in work. I mean, we're gonna see a lot of things that are going to be really alarming to many of us, and should be alarming, I think, to all of us. But I think therein lies the rub. Is somewhere along this way in this process, specifically, I think since 2015, this behavior that has become normalized is troubling, to say the least. And I think there are a lot of different factors that feed into that. Social media, the rhetoric from people in power, how we talk to one another, how we talk about one another, how we actually maybe not communicate at all with one another, and how we don't have any conversation or collaboration or ability to constructively disagree with one another is super problematic to me. And, therein, again, lies the rub, but also the work. And so I'm, as a usually perpetually optimistic person, going back to that point, I'm usually perpetually optimistic. And I think that I like everyone else, I'm still need some time to really figure out like where it is that my skills and my talent and my ability best rests to be unrested and to be activated and to be mobilized. I oftentimes will rely on the things that I've done so often in the past. Okay, I know how to do this. I can do this really well. I'm really good at organizing. I'm really good at fundraising. I'm really good at connecting people. I'm really good at speaking to an issue. But right now, I think this might be the second administration of someone like Donald Trump, but we are not. And so we already have an idea, but I actually don't know if we really know what's about to happen, and that I think is most unnerving for people who are on the docket for having their rights taken away.
Have you always been a leader? Even when you were young, like what were you like as a kid? Were you like, sometimes people are just born this way and you're like, you know what? Even I look back when I was 6 or 7, I was always kind of, let's call it bossy. That's what they call it, girls. What were you like when you were in child form growing up?
I think when I was a kid, I was a pleaser. I wanted to make sure that my teachers were, and I still think I'm very much the same way. So when I do like a project, I want to make sure I'm doing it right. I want to make sure everyone who I'm working with, specifically, like if it's like a play or like a musical or like a collaborative project like that, performance project specifically, I think I want to make sure I'm like really performing and like giving you what you asked for. Like I was a pleaser as a kid. So, a good student, showed up, wanted to be the best in the class, was, an active I wouldn't say a Pollyanna. I don't know if I was a Pollyanna, but like, you know, I wanted to be teacher's pet, I think, in a lot of ways. I wanted to appeal to the adults to show them how much I could be an adult.
Were you like that with your parents too? Who were you trying to?
Oh my gosh, I'm the youngest of 3.
Okay.
So I mean, so yeah, I was the kid. I was the golden. In my mind, I mean, again, like we were talking before, our lens of the world is probably my lens is probably vastly different. But to me, I think I was the golden child. You know, my 2 sisters who might watch this might disagree, but
they're like, wait a minute.
Hold on, just a second.
What are your sisters' names?
Emily and Amanda.
Emily and Amanda. I want to hear on DM from you, like who's the real fave and what's the real skinny here with this kid.
I mean, but you know, so as a kid, it was I was the overachiever. But then when I started to come to terms with my identity, I think my academics slipped, my desire and need to kind of mask that. Like I was just trying to do overtime of trying to hide who I was from my family, from people in school, especially in middle school and high school. You know, I was overcommitted. I was doing sports. I was doing after school activities, yearbook, choir, swimming. My freshman year of high school, I did football. I mean, I was just trying to like do everything I could to not let people know that I was different in some way or another.
That had to be such a heavy. I think
that's common. I think a lot of people who are queer specifically are just trying to get through, you know, just trying to survive, trying to live. And oftentimes it presents itself by, you know, like almost like not assimilation, but like hiding amongst the masses until you really can find your support group. And I went to a Catholic high school. So I just was like, you know, I was like, I don't know. I mean, like it was all very, I was doing all of these things to just make sure that people knew that I was a good heterosexual kid.
But how do you even then figure out when you're that young and you're like when you don't even know yet yourself, when did you finally go, okay, wait, this is what, or do you even remember that?
Well, I remember, I remember my grandma would like, my mind is going in 15 different directions. Yeah. Because, you know, I remember when my grandma and grandpa on my dad's side, I would help out at their house. And so whether it would be mowing or planting flowers, but me and my grandma specifically were buddies. And so she would, you know, pick me up from school and we would go, you know, we'd go see movies or you know, she'd always surprise me with like a cassette, and like my grandma's cassettes that she would give me were like Bette Midler and like you know cast recordings, and so it's like I don't know if she knew. She's no longer with us, but you know I don't know. And I never had this ability to have this conversation. She passed when I was in college, before I was really out to my entire family. I was out to my parents at that point, but by the time she passed, I don't know. We never had the opportunity for me to have that conversation with her about who I was. But I feel like she knew. And so, you know, there was this like encouragement of just embracing these things that I loved, which was the thing that allowed me, I think, to figure out subconsciously or even consciously, I really don't remember fully, to kind of navigate a path towards finding people who were either like me or could accept and love me. And so, you know, it was because of my grandma, who saw a lot of talent in me, that she paid for me to go to this young riding camp. It sounds like riders, like a horse riding camp, but no, it's writers, like you know,
WRIT.
A writing camp at Duke University. And I went. It was the first time I ever went on a plane, and I went from the Akron-Canton Airport down to Raleigh-Durham, and the counselors were Duke University students, and you know, often involved in the English department or in the arts and the theater, dance departments. And I had started to cultivate and find friendships from around the country of people who were just not like me. You know, people who were from different races and different backgrounds, which was not anything that I had in my little town of North Canton, Ohio, in Greentown. Ohio.
Homogenous.
Yeah, I mean, very, very white. And so that was the first step. And then I remember meeting this counselor named Julie, whose best friends were all gay. And she didn't call it out, but she embraced me and said, I this kid needs me. And boy, was she right. And that's kind of where the process really of my coming to terms with my identity really started. And I was in middle school at that time, and I did the writer's camp for like 3 years or 4 years. So from the time that I was in middle school to like my first 2 years in high school, the first person that I dated was from this writer's camp, you know? I mean, that first acknowledgement, that, you know, the first boy I kissed, you know? I mean, it was very heart-stopper in that way, you know, when I think about it.
Are you still in contact with her?
With Julie, off and on. Yeah, I mean, it's been off and on. You know,
It's just what a pivotal... It's funny how
a relationship, yeah.
You know, sometimes people just come in your life, and it's strange how big of an imprint they make.
Well, you know, and this is at the advent of having the internet in your home and having access to email, and like we didn't have phones, but I had this ability to log into
AOL.
Yeah, it was I think it might have been AOL.
Remember the noise it would make first?
Getting on the Ethernet.
You're like, we got it. It's coming.
I was like, why isn't it working? But that allowed, you know, she introduced me to friends who I've never met in person, but people who were my pen pals, who I could share my fears with, as I was coming out and coming to terms with it, even though I hadn't told anybody yet. I hadn't told anybody except Julie and her friend Mark and her friend Dana, and, you know, Mark and Dana, people I've never met in person. I've never in my life ever met them, but I have printed off. It was just so crazy. I was going through and getting boxes out of my parents' house, and I had a whole like office bin box of all of these emails that I sent back and forth to them. And like, I haven't been able to go through them because I don't know what I will read, other than I've romanticized how I've come out and come through that process. But that was a really scary time for me. And I don't know if I'm even like really willing to go back and reread through all of that and see all of that definite fear and pain. And, you know, it's I don't know why I'm denying myself that opportunity, I think, to see a younger version of myself and figure out how I came to be here. But there's a lot of pain, and there was a lot of things that happened in that period of my life that if it weren't for Julie, and if it weren't for Mark and Dana and, you know, my friend Laura Bonnell, who I was the first person that I came out to in high school, if it weren't for those pivotal relationships, my choir director, Kathy Ringley, I mean, those people literally held my hand and ushered me into the next chapter of my life. Otherwise, I don't know if I would be here. And that's a true statement.
So you're saying, like, you were in some really dark places.
Oh.
Can you think of specifically, like, because I know I can do that with my life, where you have a specific time or moment or some place you can go back to where you're like, okay, this was definitely, when I look back at it, like I was in deep.
Well, you know, I think I grew up, you know, this is a story I have shared very readily, is that I grew up in a really conservative family. My father's father was active in the Republican Party in Stark County. And so when I was a kid, I went to the Republican National Convention in 1992 in Houston, Texas. And the first time I ever got drunk was with a group of right-to-lifers, which is really funny. How old was I in 1992? I mean, I was born in 78. So I was 14 years old, and I was drunk on sangria at a Right-to-Life event in Houston, Texas. And I mean, yeah, I guess. Anyway,
I mean, free drinks.
The commentary. But this was at a time period when I was coming out, I'm of the generation that the rhetoric was, you're going to die alone, you'll die of AIDS, and no one will love you. And so I had that to contend with, let alone my own internal hate and disgust for myself, and not wanting to let anybody down. You know, like I am a mama's boy, and so not wanting to have my mother or father be disappointed and not and trying to still juggle that idea of I can give them this idea of who they think I am and still be the person that they want me to be. But I can't. And, there were so many moments of just absolute despair and fear. And I think, this is it. But, every time, I think Kathy Ringley, who was my choir director, who's also no longer with us, was pivotal in making sure that I found my way to my community theater, who made sure that during the pandemic, we had this opportunity. My friend Jason Daunter, who produced these virtual events during the pandemic, was producing kind of these story series where people that he knew from the theater world would be reconnected with someone in their life that shaped them getting there. And I didn't know the premise of this. I had agreed to do the interview, and I sat down, and Jason was just kind of catching me up. He's like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. I have a surprise for you. Your choir director, Kathy's here. And it was, I should say it was a really important process for me because just a few months later, Kathy would pass away. And so I was very grateful to have this opportunity. But Kathy came in and surprised me in this StreamYard Zoom conversation. And she said, I knew before you did, and she herself was a lesbian, and I knew before you did, and I felt it was my responsibility to make sure that someone was watching out for you. And so, she took me to the Players Guild of Canton, and I did my first audition for one of the plays there that she was music directing. And I got in the ensemble, and I played The Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come because of my height. And but it just opened a door, and I started to meet people I started to meet out gay men who were thriving and happy, and were surrounded with people who loved them. And I met other people who were, affirming. Now we call them allies. But we didn't have that language in 1996, 1995. We were just, there were gay people and there were non-gay people, right? We didn't have the language. We hadn't evolved the way we approach the conversation and or identity. How we talk about identity, it's so nuanced, how we talk about gender, how we talk about gender identity. But she gave me the opportunity to be surrounded by people who would love me regardless.
Were you overcome
no conditions?
Were you overcome with emotion when you saw her on the Zoom?
I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it because it was right before. So there's so many pieces to this puzzle, this story, and my relationship with Kathy, because it was so special. I would go. The first time I ever went to New York City, my favorite place in the entire world, was with our choir, and the first time I saw a Broadway show was with Kathy. The first time that I kept going. I went back twice as a graduate to chaperone the group and go with Kathy. Kathy would come down for choir conferences here in Columbus, and I would meet her, after, and she would be supportive of my drag, and we would talk and we would catch up about that. And so, but we had not had the ability, to be together, even in that sense, and a few years. And I hadn't yet. I had Hairspray. I had agreed to do Hairspray. Then the pandemic hit, so Hairspray was taken away, and so I didn't think I was doing Hairspray. And then Hairspray was back on the table, literally like a couple weeks before the producers called and said we want to go back out with Hairspray. Well, it was still, I was being very tight-lipped about it, as I am with almost everything. I'm like, I take an NDA very seriously, so I'm like, oh, I can't say anything. But I never told her. And in that conversation, it was a couple weeks after I had known that Hairspray was going to happen. And I was so excited to tell her that Hairspray was going to happen. I was so excited to have her come to San Diego, which is the city we opened in 2021. And I didn't get that opportunity to have this full circle moment with her, of having her protect this kid and allowing me to I always loved the arts. I wanted to be on stage. My parents were separated when I was a kid. And I was like, I can't remember if I was 4 or 5, but we lived right in Northeast Ohio. And so my dad, when we were with him one weekend, took us to go see Cats in Cleveland at Playhouse Square. And it changed everything for me because I was like, oh my gosh, people can do this.
Right.
You can be on stage and you can be a cat. I want to do that, and just the joy that people had in the audience. And I mean, all of those things. This is such a fragmented,
No, it's
disjointed conversation,
no,
but
it's
it's how, it's kind of how I view it all.
Yeah.
My life is really fragmented and disjointed, but it all has come together to form a really beautiful tapestry. And Kathy was so important to that.
So before we move into the theater and your talents and all these other things, before we go back to shore, we're still in deep waters here,
Yeah.
okay? We're going to stay for 1 minute. So when you finally got the balls, when you're like, okay, it's time to like, let's come out with this. Let's talk to the parents.
Am I coming out?
Yes.
Okay.
So when you look back on it, like when you told them, were they did they disappoint you? Or
No.
were they like, you know
No.
what, we knew it? Was it so much easier than you thought?
No and no. They didn't disappoint me. The situation with which I had to come out was I was in college, and it was my sophomore year, and I came out under pretty terrible circumstances and duress. Like I was running for student government, for the vice president of student government. I had made the decision at August orientation. I believe it was August orientation. I made the decision that once my parents dropped me off, I was just going to be myself. So if people, and I am, I'm an effeminate guy. I have an effeminate nature to me. I definitely embrace the feminine side of who I am. There's a masculine, there's a feminine. And I knew that it wasn't worth it anymore for me to hide any part of myself. And I was at college. I thought, oh my gosh, I'm at college. That's going to be loved and accepted, or just accepted, because people here at college are different. Well, I went to Denison University, and at the time that I was there, it felt like, and I don't know if people who were there at the same time that I was there would agree. I'll give my kind of eye on my experience. It felt to me as if the student body was more conservative than the faculty, which is such an interesting dynamic in a university setting.
Yeah.
So it's a small, little liberal arts school for people who might not know, in Granville, Ohio, which is about 45 minutes east of Columbus.
Didn't Jennifer Garner go there too?
Jen Garner went there.
The same time as you?
No. She's
She a
graduated
little older than you?
She's a little bit older. Yeah, I'm 46. I think Jen is 50. I don't know. I don't wanna
Jen
say.
is, but you look
Jen
good,
is-
girl.
Jen looks
Girl,
so
you
good,
look
queen.
good.
You better, queen. But she's a fellow on Big Red alum, and so Steve Carell and Hal Holbrook, and there's a great legacy of actors who've come from Denison, and that's not what took me there. What took me there was financial support, because I had wanted to go to all these places, but when push came to shove, I had to go where it was most financially feasible for me to go, and I had gotten I'd received a lot of scholarship from Denison. But I just made the decision. August orientation, I was just going to be out, and if people asked, or if I would present myself in one way or another, I would just be like, yeah, I'm gay. But that didn't translate to my home. My home life because I was living on campus. So my home life versus my campus life were two very different things. I think my parents knew, right? Because there were conversations throughout my growing up. My parents took me to therapy when I was in high school. I think wanting to maybe try to fix the problem as they saw it, which I say that, and I'm like, I wonder, how does that hit people's ear? Who's going to be listening to this? And I don't fault my parents for trying to handle what they saw as an issue. Trying to be parents.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't know. I didn't know. But again, as luck would have it, to talk about that therapy conversation, I ended up with a therapist who was in fact a gay man, who was saying this isn't, was talking, every time I would go in would be like, you're okay. Are you okay? There's nothing wrong with you. Do you know there's nothing wrong with you? And then he would have sessions with my parents. And I don't know what their sessions were about, but then we had to come together where he said, there's nothing here for me to fix. You have to fix how you approach this issue with Andrew. And so like, that wasn't my coming out. That was a process of, I didn't put words to my identity when I was doing therapy. But I think they thought this would be something that would fix me. So then fast forward to college. And I think it was known, but it was never stated. Then I went through this period when I was running for student government, and there was a group of people, an underground hate group at Denison, and who was just trying to intimidate me, scare me, carving things to my door, leaving voicemails on my answering machine, just harassing me, putting things under my door in my dorm room, broken into my dorm room to come and get me. So throughout that process, I'd moved out of my dorm room and moved into an all-girls dorm, and thanks to my friend Heather Evans, who, again, there are people on my journey that I am grateful for. Like, if they weren't there, I don't know where I'd be. And so, there came to a point where there was supposed to be a campus governance kind of a situation where we were going to have a conversation with how things were going to be dealt with. And at that point, the night before it happened, I called my mom and dad, and I just said, I'm in deep, and that you have to know what's going on with, because that might have been there. I've had a few really dark points in my life. And I felt like I was out on an island without a raft, without support, without, I had nothing. And I was like, I have no choice but to tell my parents who I am, what's going on. So they did not, long story longer, they did not disappoint. They were there. They showed up. I think they were there the next day on campus. They drove in. They sat through the hearing with me. They talked to administration. I mean, there were a lot of fumbles in this situation, in this story with me along the way. And I will commend the university now, and their president for apologizing for the way things were handled and their behavior with which they desired to sweep it under the rug. Because that's what happened to me in 1998, 1999, there was a need for me not to report it to the police, not to take it outside of the university system so that it would be handled internally, which hindsight's 2020, but
Sure
as a kid, when you look to authority figures to take care of you, and you need an advocate for you. And I didn't have anybody in that room advocating for me before my parents were involved. I didn't have anyone protecting me. I didn't have anyone speaking up for my best interests. That was a major lesson for me, and probably was one of the main points in affirming who I am today, was that how do we learn to be our best advocate for ourselves and for others? And no one was in that room advocating for me. And I didn't know that. I thought their advice was the best advice. We're going to handle this. Don't worry.
Yeah. Shh.
Yes. Yeah. And I have goosebumps because not in the most uncomfortable kind of way, right? It's like, what a disservice they did to me to not have that be part of the story that they could handle, that I needed to have appropriate action taken against the individuals who were responsible. So, as a result, here we sit. And I don't know if they ever imagined that I would have the platform that I have now, because I talked about it on Drag Race, and not to like a full extent. And there are many, and I think there are many things with which, again, hindsight is 2020. But like my job now is to ensure that it doesn't happen again. And I don't know how to do that other than keeping, speaking about it, showing up for people, learning how to utilize my platform in a way with which that services not only people like me, but people who are also disenfranchised or pushed out or are othered because of, for whatever reason, women, immigrants. I mean, the list just goes on and on.
Well, you're the Julie, you're the Kathy, you're the Heather for other people. You know, like you're the mentor. That's what you're doing is you're the voice and you're the person helping to pull other people along too. That's what you can do.
Right.
And being an advocate for
Yeah.
for who you were. Stuck in a cycle of losing and gaining the same extra pounds? Tired of quick fix diets? Choose a weight loss program that's safe and that works. At Donaldson, we couple weight loss injections, we all know the ones, with science-backed education, lab testing, and one-on-one support to help you shed unwanted weight and achieve your goals. Take the first step to a healthier, more confident you. Visit donaldsonplasticsurgery.com/weight to get started today. And if you're a first-time client going in for your first treatment, you'll get $100 off by just mentioning the Carrie Croft Show. You're welcome. So how many people ask you if it's really worth it to get a haircut by Mia Santiago?
Honestly, a lot. And honestly, it is.
I mean, she is a celebrity hairstylist in Columbus, Ohio. That's all you really need to know.
She doesn't miss, and now she has her own salon, Headspace. It is truly something this city has never seen.
Girl, I did one scalp treatment and I would let Jake put his hands on my head anytime he wanted.
No, same. It's right in Upper Arlington where Mia cuts and styles, and Jake manages a full scalp spa, which is like a facial for your scalp and a massage for all of the stress and tension we hold in our head and neck.
I legit felt like I was on something after I got my first treatment. And my hair looks so much healthier now that all the buildup and dead skin are gone. I mean, I do love massages, but honestly, this might be even better. Plus, it has so many proven benefits for my hair health.
Truly believe you get what you pay for, and Mia and Jake are the dream team.
Use code CARRIE for 20% off your first visit with Miss Mia Santiago. You know?
Yeah, because, you know, these are not things that I think anyone thought of, you know, right? And the conversation is so different now versus what it was 4 years ago versus what it was in, you know, in 1998, 1999. But one thing that hasn't changed is, you know, some people will speak to their interests, not to what is best. And what served the university at the time and what served me were two very different things, and I was not aware of them. And so, yeah, it was that lesson in my darkest point galvanized me into who I am today, for sure.
And the thing about going through all this, I'd call it turbulence, turmoil, you know, whether it's internally trying to figure out who am I and why, you know, do I fit in and, you know, all these things. And then externally in the world, it just builds such a resilient, gritty person. And that's the thing, like looking at you today and the platform that you have and what you're able to do. It's like all of these dark times create, if you allow it, if you tap into it and leverage it, you know, such a strong person.
Yeah, it's like, it's what's crazy, Carrie, is like it's not like it's never intentional, right? Like it's not like I ever set out to go, I'm going to like this is what I'm going to do now. It just was like it's like just this building of, well, this isn't right, and then going through therapy and going, wait, that's what happened, and I didn't. I mean, it took me a process to even, you know, maybe. Gosh, I can't even tell you how many years later that I said, wait, I was not taken care of. I wasn't, literally in the process of it all, I wasn't aware. Which is heartbreaking. And like I had to take off what I thought were rose-colored glasses. I had to take those off and go, wait, what did happen to me? You know, and this is post Matthew Shepard. So you know, and there were a lot of things that were happening that just made you go, well, what is, you know, they brought Judy Shepard to campus and they had these conversations. I mean, like it was just all of these things that they were doing, which seemed right. Yeah. But you know, so on paper, they were doing everything right. And they, you know, in action, they really were doing so many wrong things. And again, you know, to speak, to put a pin in that, you know, to speak to the university today after I was on season 11 in 2019 and that story came to light. And I think there was some conversation surrounding that, and the university reached out to me and apologized and wished to have a further dialogue about it. And I think that takes some. Sorry, I think that takes some balls and some. I think they did the right thing by doing that.
Did you have the conversation?
Yeah. And I said, and there was. I mean, like it was. It's like it's different people. I mean, there's some people there. There's still some of the same players there, but the president has just since changed. A lot of the players who were there are no longer there. Yeah. And so, but that conversation is vital to allow, change to occur, and hopefully it's better for LGBTQIA+ students on that campus and university. And I'm sure it is. I'm not sure it is because, it's challenging. But my college years definitely informed everything else about my adult life, especially the formation of Nina West. Because when I was in college, we were bringing in drag queens from Columbus, to do an end-of-year drag show, which, I mean, it was also crazy because prior to my ever going to Denison, James Armel Smith was a student at Denison University, and he started doing these drag shows there, and which is crazy. I think Oberlin, Denison, and maybe a couple other universities in the West Coast, and maybe one or two on the East Coast were doing drag shows, which was not really common in the 90s. And James was bringing drag queens in. And so I kind of inherited that when I became the president of the LGBTQ student organization at the time. And that's how I met drag artists and saw their personhood and saw their humanity and saw who they, saw these real people behind the creation of the art.
Speaking of drag, would you say drag is your absolute happiest place, or so if you had like theater, like being on stage, just doing like a play or something, or being in drag, like, are you like, is it the same high?
It's all different, right? Because drag is like, there's an energy to drag that doesn't necessarily exist in the same way. It doesn't present itself in the same way in the world of theater. It's exciting. They're both equally exciting.
Yeah.
They're just very different. Drag, subculturally, has just a different vibe and an energy. And you feel it when you're surrounded by a group of other queens or kings, entertainers. Like, you just feel it. And theater has a different energy. I think drag can be collaborative, but it's oftentimes more individual. It's an individual, almost presenting art form that you get to do with other people, that you kind of you celebrate and do with other people. Theater is a collaborative art form, so you have this whole. You're all coming together to tell a story, which is very different. Oftentimes, these are not like set in stone, like hard facts. It's just like oftentimes it can be that can be the truth. So but drag is exciting because it presents an opportunity to really, it is your creation. It is your character. It is your art and your heart and it's all out there on the line.
Do you love getting do you love with the makeup and the process, and how long does that take you?
I love it because I love the transformation of it all. I love allowing myself to have the thoughts of what I'm thinking about while I'm putting it on, because it's a thought of, okay, it's like getting in the mode, but getting in game mode, what is this event? What is this show that I'm about to do? What is, what am I being, what is my job there? How am I going to accomplish that? And transforming into the character.
I just saw you start to do that a little bit just now. I mean, you started
fun.
to
Yeah, it's fun. And so I love it. I love how it makes me feel when I'm in drag. It takes me about 2 hours. I mean, an hour. I mean, I can do it quick. I like 2 hours just because I like the time.
You do all the contouring and
all of it.
And it's a whole thing.
All of it. From sit down, from shaving to out the door dressed, it can about 2 hours.
So with theater, if you had to pick, I know this is gonna be hard, like picking like between children or dogs or something. Top 3 all time. Like if you had to pick 3 like musical theater productions, these are my favorite to watch. They're my favorite shows.
3?
Yep.
Wow. Okay. It's real.
This is serious.
I don't know. Maybe. I mean, it's kind of crazy. I get to do a production of it, but Into the Woods is one of my very favorites. I would say. Well, when I was another kind of important musical to me was Rent. That came out when I was in high school. When I was going through all of that turmoil and that period of really not knowing who I was. So Rent would be probably a big one for me.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if, it's like, I don't know. Little Shop of Horrors, maybe. I love Little Shop.
That was really, really good.
I love it. It's maybe, if we're talking stage musicals, those are the stage shows. Maybe Gypsy. I don't know if we had, I could go on and on about the shows that I love. But we'll
I just want to put you on the card.
Those 3. We'll rest with those 3.
Hold your little toes to the fire on that. So speaking of Into the Woods, let's give a little love to that and give some more detail around what you're doing and what it's for.
Yeah, so I'm doing a production. I'm partnering again with the Butterfly Guild, which works with Nationwide Children's Hospital. And they raise money for hospice and palliative care for Nationwide Children's. And this second production I've done with them. The first time was in 2019. I did The Little Mermaid, and I played Ursula, the Sea Witch. And so this time we're collaborating again, and I'm playing the witch in Into the Woods. Into the Woods is a fantastic story written by Stephen Sondheim and James Lapine. It is brilliant, right? It's Sondheim. It's brilliant. Complex, complicated, heavy, layered, very difficult to master musically.
Can you give us a little
God, no.
tune?
Not this early. But the joy. So if you're not familiar, not this early. The joy of the show is the first act is the folklore, fairy tales that we're all familiar with: Cinderella, Rapunzel, Little Red, and the first act is like, oh, okay, these are familiar stories, and then we get to see what happens after the happily ever after. And it's funny, it's beautiful, and we're doing it for a wonderful cause. So I hope people will come out to the Palace Theater.
When is it?
March 7th through March 9th at the Palace Theater. Tickets are available at the Butterfly Guild's website.
Okay, and we will definitely tag that.
It's going to be fabulous, yeah. And it's it's got an all-star cast of incredible Columbus performers, directed by David Baguette. Baguette. I said baguette like
you want it like a piece of bread. Hey, baguette, tomato.
Let's call the whole thing up. Yeah. So and it's gonna be great. Into the Woods was the first show that I saw. It was one of the very first musical experiences I had was exposed to, because they did a recording for PBS. Great performances. And I remember it coming on. I was like, "What is this?" And that's when I first met Bernadette Peters in conscious sense. I knew that Bernadette Peters was in Annie, right? But I didn't know who she was.
Bernadette Peters.
But she is a theater legend, and so my love for her really grew then. And I was probably like maybe 10. I don't know when they did that great performances, but it was like I was not very old when I was first introduced to Into the Woods. Maybe 11. I don't know. But I was young. And so it's a really important show to me. So to have the ability to play the witch, and also which is typically not cast male, and the fact that I get to do this role and I think have the layer of drag to it to tell to add that commentary to it, to what the story is sharing about the world and about how we interact with one another is so important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you mentioned Bette Midler earlier, and she happens to be one of my. So when I say that name, like, what's the first thing you think of?
Bette Midler, I think of a song called Blueberry Pie that she recorded. Oh my God, in the mid '90s. I can't believe that's the first thing I think of when you ask me that, because I think of beaches. I mean, I do think of beaches. I'm going on like I think of Industry, Otto Titzling.
God.
Wind beneath
I
my
think of like
wings.
when she says, "Your face is your fortune," so some wise man spoke.
My face is my fortune. That's why I'm totally broke. She was another one. I mean, there are people who come in. There are people and stories that come into your life. She was my gay icon.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like a lot of people who are older than me. It's like Judy Garland. Bet for me was. I just loved her. I love her. I love her to the ends. And I remember when I was this is a story about my grandma. So I loved Bette Midler so much as a kid. And she was doing the Divine Miss M tour, which was going around. Did you go to that? Here's my story. So she was going to be at Blossom Music Center with that tour. And up in, I forget where Blossom is. It's like up near Cleveland. And it was me, my mom, my grandma, and I think my sister Emily went to that one, maybe Amanda. And we get there, we're sitting on the lawn, you know, and just kind of sitting there, and I'm just so excited, and I got a program. And Bette comes down, I think on a moon or something, I can't remember. She's lowered down. And all around us, you know, I'm starting to see like men kissing each other and hugging and kind of like sitting on blankets together. And I think my grandma was like, okay, it's time to go, because it was almost too much in their face, because it was so queer, so gay attended, right?
And you're up on the blanket just like,
I was like, I love her. And I mean, I wasn't very old then. That might have been 1992. I don't even know when that would have been. But Bette is like this wonderful hero, you know, someone who spoke again. A lot of people in that time period were speaking to, I think, queer people, you know, Madonna. But for some reason, Bette was the one who connected to me. That resonated so deeply with me.
yeah.
And I love her so much. And
Me too. We share that.
I just love her.
I always think of too. I think it's gonna rain today.
Oh my gosh, you're just naming all the hits on that Beaches album.
Oh, it's
Honey.
so good.
Bette and me, I love her. I never met her.
I was gonna say you should get that opportunity.
Oh, I love her so much. I don't know what I would do if I met Bette Midler. I've met a lot of really cool people. I've never met Bette, and but like she's just one of those people.
Yeah.
Who I think had such a profound impact on my life that I was unaware at the time.
Yeah.
Of how much you don't know how much I needed that.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it was in the presentation of this camp, like giant, you know, goddess who was just so unabashedly herself.
Yeah.
Who oftentimes always spoke, affirming love to LGBTQ people,
Mm-hmm.
to gay men who affirmed them.
So
Powerful.
Very
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah.
So speaking of love,
Come on, love.
affirming love.
Yeah.
Do you speak
Affirming
on your
love.
personal life? Like, I know you're single. How deep do we go on that? Are we ready to mingle? Are we like, this is hard?
I'm very single.
But you probably would be hard to date because
Thanks, that's my reality.
well,
Carrie.
I mean, here's why I mean that. Well, first of all, because you're like, you're not everyone can get to you, first of all.
I'm
Because
not very accessible. Yeah.
and then you
And that's
also are
intentional.
like, I feel like you're like the total package, and you probably know that. Like, I just feel like you
I don't know that.
oh, well, you should listen here, honey.
I don't know that, but thank you.
You're the total package.
Thanks.
Okay. Do I call it the total gay package for a gay man? Like,
I mean, I don't know. I think gay guys don't. I don't know if gay guys really want to date a drag queen, but we can say.
well, okay, but you know what? There is a niche of gay men that would love to date a drag
I just don't
queen.
want them to fetishize it. You know what I mean? Like where they're like,
Is that what you get? Is that what you get usually?
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, or they call them race chasers. Like if you've been on Drag Race, people who look to engage with people from the show
Yeah.
in after hours types of ways.
So like groupies in a drag.
Yeah. I mean, so like I am flirty to a point with fans. Like it definitely stops. Like it's like, okay, I can read a room really well.
Yeah.
And so like I'm like it's at all. Like, I am very guarded.
Yeah, which I understand totally.
Yeah.
But what is your perfect mate? Like for you?
Independent, smart, smart, independent, an ability to hold a conversation. Tend to like guys older than me. That's just, I tend to be attracted to that. Just more because they're more. I just someone who's just established in their life and in their ritual and in their. Why are you looking like you're thinking? Are you thinking of somebody?
My next question was this. I was like, okay, is this appropriate question to ask? Are you more in? Is there like do you like more masculine men, or is that fluid? That's fluid.
It's fluid because it's energy. I'm really attracted to energy.
Yeah.
So it's like how people engage with the world, how they treat other people, how they treat themselves. I want someone who takes care of themselves, who puts themselves. I like someone who puts themselves first. I think that's really important. And I can benefit from that. How can I take better care of myself? And I'd like to think I take care of myself. But, is there someone out there? Is there, a mate, a person who can encourage, challenge, embrace, all of those things about me? And I'm no picnic, I'm going to be, I'm very driven. I'm very career focused and career minded. But that doesn't mean I'm not also open to finding love. Mm-hmm. But I don't know what that looks like.
I am a matchmaker.
Oh man,
you got to be careful. Ask Menashe. It's one of my. It's one of my many hobbies.
I would like to. Look. I don't know why I'm getting flustered.
Okay,
all of a
because you're
sudden.
getting a little. Don't be blushing, Nina.
Here we are.
Okay, so if someone DMs me and says, I would like the opportunity to have coffee with one Nina West, I may have to just sort of broker
you're
some
gonna
sort
have
of.
to vet.
Listen, no, honey, listen. I'm not just gonna plop. This is my name behind it, okay? Give me a little. I would absolutely vet the hell out of it, especially for you. Are you kidding me? You'd be like, I'll never talk to you again. Who'd you set me up with?
Oh my god.
So what's the longest relationship you've ever had?
5 years.
And it would have to be someone who has their own thing going on because you are so busy.
I've done a variety of things. I've dated people. Oftentimes I think the thing that I fall into is I really want to take care of people in a way, and to a fault, and that's not the kind of thing I want to do. I think it's really important for me to find someone who's just got their own thing going, and that we bring our best selves together.
And you need someone to take care of you too.
Yeah, I think I think that's a balance, right? Any good relationship is a dance. It's a balance, and it's a give and take. And I would like to thank all of my previous boyfriends for allowing me to have those experiences to be hopefully a better boyfriend now.
So what is the last? Well, this has just been like the highlight of my month.
Oh, stop!
Listen, I've been trying.
Listen.
Listen here, honey.
Linda.
I was just gonna say, listen, Linda. Did you just say, listen, Linda?
I did. Listen, Linda.
Do you remember that? With the little girls like, Linda, listen, that's the best. I still say that. See, I just love you so much. But here's where I'm going to get depressed. This is what happens to me when special people come on. Now I feel like we should be friends. And then you're going to be like, honey, we had our moment.
No, we're going to be friends.
I'm like, please,
you're going to hook me up with somebody evidently.
Well, I am. I totally am.
Then we're going to get married. You're going to have to come to the wedding.
Okay, wait, here's the thing. If I do end up hooking you up with someone, can I marry you?
Are you ordained?
I will get ordained for that.
Well, hold on. Let's see how it goes first.
But
let's go.
I want to marry you
date first.
Okay,
and then
you're being non-committal. I
am, because what if?
But what if I hook you up with your dream mate? Then it's like, okay, you can marry us.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I'm saying.
Sure.
Okay, thank you for making. Thank you for making my month.
Thank you for making my month.
It's so great. All right, thank you. Seriously,
thank you.
You are an absolute light, and I love you. And you're my new bestie. And now I can just
Thanks for having me.
Live the rest of my day as a champion.
Oh, stop caring.
No, it's. It's so true. All right. If you're still out there following your girl, follow me on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcast. And until next time, go buy your tickets to Into the Woods, DM me for a date with Nina, and keep moving, baby.
Keep moving. Oh my God. It's going to happen.
Oh, no, it's going to happen.
Oh my goodness.
Listen here, honey.
Linda.
I'm a matchmaker.